Hey guys, it's Joyce. Medusa was framed. I'm going to do a quick little spread here, and then I'm going to do my book reading for the day of Dr. Bolu. But so last night I was hanging out with a friend, and she was expressing to me her interest in doing some grid work, which she didn't have very much experience with. So she was chatting with me about it because she knows I do grid work all the time. Cheers. Both individually and in groups, both on site and remotely. And she really wanted to do something to contain or discharge or temper, shall we say, the energy at the Georgia Guidestones. And she was thinking of going. And I was expressing to her that that is such a massive site that is connected through ley lines and underground water systems to other sites in Georgia. And it's kind of a big job for someone who doesn't have a lot of grid work experience to take on. I suggested that she might want to try with something small at home first, someplace where she had a bad vibe, and work on that instead of going into something that's corporate and epic and generational and beyond the scope of one person's skill. Anyway, so we chatted about it for a while, and we looked for a variety of options, and I ended up after coaching her through some pendulum reading and stuff, we were getting very strange readings from the pendulums. And so I thought, let me just do a quick reading. Let me ask some specific questions. She was also not really familiar with pendulums, so she didn't have that confidence to use the tool. Anyway, long story short, I did a couple readings asking very specific questions with a variety of cards. And basically, what kept coming up is that this has already been dealt with. My suggestion to her was that she pair herself with some more experienced people, and that I would help her if she wanted. And instead of trying to contain something that you, first of all, don't have the experience to be containing, or second of all, from quantum physics or hoodoo or voodoo perspective, when you try to contain something, you don't what are you containing, and what are the consequences on the other side of the containment? It's not just, we're going to put a box around this. No, energy comes in, energy goes out. There are different systems that are impacted by that which you do. You can't just put a box around it. That never works. Ask Pandora. That never works. Anyways, but I had suggested that she work on a frequency fence with someone a little more experienced, and she work on looking at being more of a transformer of energy instead of a policeman trying to enclose it. So, the energy comes in, it moves toward the earth through the stones. The stones take it down to the water, which are underneath the stones, just like star forts. There's water underneath there. I also believe there's sacred geometry and very nefarious frequencies and symbols beneath the stones on the matrix that the stones lay. So you have to have the positive charge come down through the stones, ground into the earth, but then when it touches the water, it transforms, and then the process starts over. The negative electrons that are created by that contact with the water rise up through the stones. That's when the magic happens, and that's where you can change the intention. That was my suggestion. So I said, okay, let's throw a couple cards and let's see if we can get some advice for you as what to look for. And what I got when I asked the question a variety of ways with a variety of decks is that it's already in process. Peeps is already on it. Now this was remarkable to me, really. I had long felt that the Georgia Guidestones had actually kind of been neutralized. I've been feeling that for some time. And I'm working on a video that involves some grid work. And the Georgia Guidestones are part of the grid work video that I'm working on right now. And when I looked at them on Google Earth just a few days ago, I was acutely aware of how different a frequency I felt coming from them. They are still nefarious, and a lot of that has to do with the angles of the stones as they're placed. You know, there are the standing stones, and then there are the stones on top, and it's all of the angles and the sacred geometry that it creates. So it's always going to be a nefarious place. But it didn't feel as vortexy to me. It didn't feel as sucking as it has felt before. So wonderful news, but I thought let's look at that. A lot of people with channels and whatnot have been talking about vortexes and all that stuff, and I just thought that that would be kind of cool to do a quick read of that. So we're going to take the Mausolea deck, Mausolea Oracle, and we're just going to do a couple cards to get a mood. 2 cards, please. Can we see the frequency moving in and out of the Georgia Guidestones, please? Can we get a little insight into the frequencies moving in and out of the Georgia Guidestones? And I'll say I have nothing to compare this to because I've never done a reading on the Georgia Guidestones before. So I don't have anything to compare this to. But let's see. Let's get a mood with a couple cards to set us off. Wow, okay. Equanimity, wisdom, and inevitability. And preservation, neutrality, and obligation. Inevitability, right? Interesting. This is kind of what set us off last night when I was doing the read with my friend, because I started with the Mausolea again to get a mood, and I got these incredibly positive cards. Matriarch was one of the cards. I was like, what? We're talking about the Georgia Guidestones and I got a Matriarch card? What is going on? Bottom of the deck, we've got Martyr. Honesty, shame, and restitution. These are not these are not cards you would think would come up if you're talking about the Georgia Guidestones. Equanimity, wisdom, and inevitability. That's about the Georgia Guidestones. Preservation, neutrality, and obligation from the arbiter of truth. Bottom of the deck, so that shadow element is the relationship between honesty and shame, which any light worker unfortunately knows far too much about. And then what comes of that is restitution. Okay, so let's keep that here with my sage. And you know what? Let's go with the Bosch. talking about the Georgia Guidestones, so let's go with the Bosch. So, can we get an energy read, please, on the frequencies coming in and out of the Georgia Guidestones right now, please? Frequency read on what's coming in and out of the Georgia Guidestones right now. Okay. Two of Swords. A decision has to be made, or a decision has been made. Wow, King of Swords. Okay, this represents the Guidestones themselves. Interesting that that's pulling up as the King of Swords. Not what I would consider the Georgia Guidestones, though the King of Swords can be a really tough, sharp, brutal, Gordon Ramsay, Robert Irvine kind of guy, nonetheless. Interesting. Let's see what the immediate past is. Oh, now last night when we did this, the immediate past, we got Judgment. Today we've got the Hierophant, pulling order out of chaos. It can be good or bad, right? Depends on what it's aspected by. Depends on the cards around it. He can be a healer or a torturer. But in any case, being the Hierophant, it's institutional, bureaucratic, hierarchies, and we know that that certainly has existed, still unfortunately exists, in the populations that created the Georgia Guidestones in the first place. So let's get some information about the relationship between, this is us asking the questions, so people and the stones themselves, the relationship between the people and the stones. This is so like last night. What is the relationship between the people asking the questions, right? Two of Swords, time to make a decision, and the stones themselves, the energy, the thought behind the stones? Justice, baby. It has already started. Oh my God. It has already started. I was so interested to see if I would get a similar read. I mean, I tried it in asking the question in two different ways with completely different decks. Justice. So what's our immediate outcome? The Empress. We've got the Hierophant up here, King of Swords here, Justice here, followed by the Empress. And she's holding a dove. Let's clarify that a little bit. Okay, well, it's not over. The process has begun, but the battle isn't over. There's still a lot of thoughts and words being tossed around and screamed about, and people running amok and having a fit. So we've got 5s and 6 of Swords clarifying the Empress. A lot of thoughts and words running around and screaming, and holy cow, what do we got on the bottom of the deck? Oh yeah, we got the Tower last night too. The Tower. This is such a similar read to last night. It has already begun. This is inevitable. It sits in the background. It's the force that sits in the background. Let's get a couple more clarifiers. Okay, well that makes sense. 8 of Cups, right? So are you going to focus on what has been lost? Because you know, as this goes down, there will be difficulty, there will be struggle, there will be confusion, there will be pain, and there will be loss. Are you going to focus on the cups that are spilled and mope? Or are you just going to move on your way and learn from the experience? Take what remains in the standing cups and rebuild something new, or just walk on your way. You know, in the Rider-Waite deck, the 8 of Cups card is he's walking away. He's walking away from the loss, which is a good thing, right? I mean, you can stay and rebuild, or you can take what you learned and walk on. Either way, it's cup energy, it's cup wisdom. Ten of Cups. It's over. I'm telling you. This read is very similar to last night. It's over, man. I mean, no, it's not over. It's not over. I keep saying that. It's in the works. You know, I use the example of, I can't remember what they're called, but, you know, I'm old, so I remember these things. There were these things that were around in the 60s and the 70s, and it was like this standing thing, and it had these wires, and at the end of the wire were all these stainless steel balls hanging, and you would pull one ball and it would hit the other balls, and they would do this, and you would watch them move, and you could push it to one side, so then they would create this ripple. But what you're watching is entropy. You're watching physics. If you try to interrupt that process of the balls moving, everything goes you know, you have to just let it work itself out. We have to let this process work itself out. There's still struggle and loss and conflict and anger and a great deal of unhappiness that has to occur. But it's inevitable. The balls are going to go the way gravity takes the balls. And we're going to come to this. We're going to come to that moment. These people involved in all this, are going to come to that moment where they have to decide that they're going to learn from the cups and energy that they lost, use the wisdom in the cups that are still standing and the resources and build something new, or they're going to just cut their losses and leave. That's going to happen. And, you know, this is going to affect all of this. This was under the Tower, by the way. 10 of Wands. So, yeah, we've got we know we're in for some more difficulty. That's no surprise. If you don't know that, you're living under a rock and you're drinking hopium. So, yeah. All right. Let's just get... Let's get one clarifier. Let's get one wrap-up clarifier. I want to make this quick from the Lenormand, my favorite Lenormand deck, the Lebanese Lenormand. Can we have one summation clarifier for all of this? And then we can tie that in to those Mausolea cards. One summation qualifier, please. One summation qualifier. I thought that was going to fall out. I kind of wanted something to fall out. Okay, I didn't want all these. I don't want, that's too many cards. That's the first card that fell. We'll go with that one. So that's the stork. And in Lenormand, you know, it's like the old fairy tale of the stork brings the baby. The stork brings new life. It's a very good card. It's a harbinger of good, harbinger of new thinking. And remember, we had all these swords, so there's lots of changes in thoughts and words, right? King of Swords. New stuff is coming. That ties in very nicely with the Eight of Cups, right? Cut your losses, move on. Take the wisdom that you have acquired through the spilling of the cups. Take the resources that are in the upright cups. Move on, because an entirely new thought form is coming in. Now let's quickly tie that back in to all of this. Our overall mood was equanimity, wisdom, and inevitability. Yeah, well, I would say that what we're talking about is equanimity and inevitability. It just didn't turn out the way they thought it would. Preservation, neutrality, obligation. Again, it didn't turn out the way they thought it would. And, you know, the key word in this card might be neutrality. The bottom of the deck here was honesty, shame, and restitution. And that's a real important scale, you know, because as I said, any light worker, which I really hate that term. I mean, there are people that work with energy that don't work in the light. I don't work in the light. I work in the dark. I work underground. I work in things you don't see. I work in frequencies, yes, most specifically. I work within frequencies and energy. But what a lot of people don't understand, because they're so addicted to the light, is there is just as much energy and frequency underground, in the water, under the water, and in the realm you don't see, in the realm of the unconsciousness. That is all just as important, just as real, and actually more impacting. What you don't see, what is experienced in your unknownness, in your frequency field, in your aura, whatever you want to call it, all that starts to take shape before it ever gets into your body as thought or symptom. So if you're working in dark being either underground, underwater, in the water, or dark being unconscious, unknown to you, unknown, is actually much more important than the light. By the time it gets to the light, you've already got a problem. You got to get to it before you get to the light. But light workers are afraid to go into those uncharted waters. I'm not. Anyway, so the shadow card here, that behind the elements can go either way. Brilliant, martyr, yeah, okay. But it's the sort of Damocles of the balance of honesty and shame. And they're so important. Anybody who, as I was saying, anybody who's a light worker, energy worker, frequency worker, energetic worker, sight worker, any of that, hoodoo, voodoo, whatever, we very well know that razor sharp edge between honesty and shame. And you have to walk it every minute of every day if you work in that work. And we do. But see, what comes of that on the other side is restitution. So are you martyring yourself the way Joan of Arc did? Or are you martyring yourself to your ego? That's only a question that you can answer. We all have to martyr ourselves to these two poles sometime. Honesty and shame. Walk on that razor's edge. What is it Geddy Lee said? Turn around, turn around, turn around. Walk the razor's edge. Don't turn your back and slam the door on me, right? See, I'm old. Geddy Lee, who's that? Martyr doesn't have to be anything melodramatic. To me, martyr means you understand the relationship that your ego has in your functioning world. And all your ego really is for is to be able to say, this is me, this is not me. That's all your ego's for. Your ego is not for anything else. So when you work to balance honesty with shame, you arrive at restitution. When you stick to your guts, your heart, and you are willing to sacrifice your ego, yes, you're a martyr to accomplish restitution. Your ego doesn't need to be there. And I think if there was any other time, certainly in my 60 some odd years, when people really needed to get rid of any unnecessary ego, you need discernment, but discernment actually doesn't have a lot of ego. Discernment isn't about you do this, I'm right, you're wrong. That's not ego. That's insecurity and fear. Ego allows you to see the difference between this thought form and that thought form. Ego is the ability to see that that's a 6 of spades and that's a 10 of cups without giving value to either. Right? Ego is just a discernment tool. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. I'm going to end this here and get ready to do the reading. In summation, let's see what happens, because I've had 3 or 4 readings now that have confirmed that the frequency work to dismantle the Georgia Guidestones has begun. But it's not going to be easy. And the outcome ultimately is going to force everyone to face some difficult facts and come to terms with their own ego, and an opportunity to martyr the ego that they don't need. So thanks, guys. This is Joyce at Medusa Was Framed. I'm going to go read you your chapter now. Ciao.